On today's show, coming off their best week of the season so far, the Ottawa Senators welcome two key players back to the ice at practice.
And it's a critical week ahead for the Ottawa Senators as they're up against three Eastern Conference rivals.
For the first time this season, we'll discuss that, plus an Ottawa Senators prospect update on today's Locked On Sens.
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Still searching for a great candidate for your company? Don't search, just match with Indeed. You can also find us on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, lockedon.senators on Instagram. The show is free and available everywhere you get podcasts, including on YouTube. Today is Monday, November 4th, and Pilsy, you weren't in the postcast on Saturday. Give me your thoughts on that 3-0 win over the Seattle Kraken.
Well, Ross, I'm glad the Ottawa Senators decided to go with reason and play Anton Forsberg in that game, not go back-to-back games with Ullmark like you and Martian wanted. I was banging the drum for Forsberg. I said, hey, up against the Seattle Kraken, he's got a shutout before. Now, was I suggesting that he would get another shutout up against the Kraken? I'll be honest, no, I didn't expect it to go that good, but Anton Forsberg was great up against the Kraken. He had to make a couple key saves, in that game, and that's what you need. You need to have the confidence in your goaltending duo that in back-to-backs, just automatic. You don't even think about it. You don't even look at a Twitter poll to see what fans want. You just go with your backup goalie, and they did that, and they get the 3-0 win.
Such a great sign that Anton Forsberg's playing at a level that we used to see from him before the injuries, and now it's looking a little bit more consistent. Now, Seattle did get shut out again yesterday by the Boston Bruins, and I put up a tweet because they were showing a lot of Kraken jerseys during the U.S. anthem in Ottawa. I was like, explain yourselves. How are you a Seattle Kraken fan in Ottawa? You like staying up for 10 p.m. starts all the time? And then I watched the game, and obviously I'm cheering for the Kraken against Boston. And it was the worst 2.5 hours of my life.
Ross, those are just Joey Decord fans, I guess, in Ottawa, Seattle Kraken fans. But yeah, I'm not sure how you end up as a Seattle Kraken fan living in Ottawa. Kind of like being an Ottawa Senators fan living in Winnipeg or Collingwood, I guess.
So with that all said, the Ottawa Senators had their best week of the season. A +9 goal differential, an 8-1 win at home. You love to see another shutout at home, and they deserve better against the New York Rangers. And one thing I love to see after the game against the Kraken was Brady Tkachuk's postgame. This guy is not getting too high, not getting too low. He said in the past, maybe they've rode the highs and lows of a season a little bit too much, but the way that he just sounded mature. He sounded like a leader. He sounded like the kind of guy who wants more. The direct quote that I pulled from it, we definitely aren't a group that's going to be complacent with wins and efforts. We want more. You can see a couple answers on our Twitter at Sens Central, the full availability on the Ottawa Senators YouTube. But to me, this sign of maturity from Brady Tkachuk is just another reason for optimism going forward. Did you know? And shout out to Steve Lloyd from TSN 1200. Pilsy, this is the furthest into a season that Brady Tkachuk has gotten without taking a fighting major.
Wow, 11 games?
10 was the previous high 2 years ago.
That's crazy. I mean, this is the maturity of this group, and Travis Green is getting these guys to buy into a certain way to play, a certain culture. And I think in years past, Ross, it made sense that players, especially the young guys, would get caught up in the highs and the lows of the season because they didn't really have that long-term goal. It was kind of like, all right, we got to win the next one. Oh, damn, we just lost that last one. And you're kind of stuck on the emotions of what's just recently happened, where as this team, they're looking at a full 82-game season and hopefully beyond that.
And one thing that's going to help is getting guys back in the mix. I teased it off the top of the show. Both Artem Zub and Shane Pinto were skating. Now, they were skating as a D pair themselves, so I wouldn't expect them both to be in the lineup tomorrow. Could I be wrong? Would I be happy to be wrong? Sure. But I think Thursday at home against the New York Islanders is when we could see these two. We're waiting for an update from Travis Green. The team just got off the ice at practice today, and no surprise. Nothing else changes. The way this team's rolling right now, why would you? You've got Tim Stutzle at center between Brady Tkachuk and Ridley Gregg, Josh Norris centering Claude Giroux and Drake Batherson, Zach Ostapchuk between Noah Gregor and Michael Amadio, then Adam Gaudette with Nick Cousins and Zach McHugh. In the back end is Jake Sanderson with Travis Hamonic, Thomas Chabot with Nick Jensen, and Tyler Clevin with Jacob Bernard Docker. Linus Ullmark, I think, has to start in goal tomorrow. I think some people are looking at overthinking it a little bit and saying, ride the hot hand. Forsberg's been great, but you just have to have him understand, and he knows it. He's the backup goalie on this team. So be great in your starts, but it doesn't mean you're going to play the next one. It's also, Pilsy, a revenge game for Linus Ullmark against the team that drafted him, the Buffalo Sabres. So it'll be familiar surroundings for Linus Ullmark going into that game tomorrow night. Do you have any qualms with starting Linus?
No, that's the guy to start, and I don't want it to get twisted. Obviously, I wanted Forsberg on Saturday, but that's because it was a back-to-back. Number 35 is your man, and you got to have him playing most of the games here, Ross, especially up against a division rival like the Buffalo Sabres, where you're going to be fighting with this team probably for a wild card spot in the East. So you got to make sure you can beat teams like that. And why not put your former Vezina winning goalie in net to give you a great chance?
What's giving you confidence heading into this week? Because we can even extend the week to next Tuesday when they play the Leafs. This 4-game stretch coming up is critical. 3 Atlantic Division opponents, all 3 of them on the road. And then you've got a mid-course, let's call it, on Thursday night at home against the Islanders. Like, what do you think the Sens can build on from their performances last week?
Well, I mean, you look at 3 very different games last week, Ross. The St. Louis game, obviously an 8-1 beatdown. And then the game up against the New York Rangers is a game where they played the better of the 2 teams and they get a loss, but they don't pout about it. They don't get too down. Like Brady Tkachuk mentioned, he doesn't let the emotions kind of pull him down. Luckily, you have a chance to go back home and go up against a weaker opponent in the Seattle Kraken, and you take care of business with a 3-0 win. So I think looking back at last week gives me confidence because they reflected on the mistakes of that Western road trip. And they said, we're not going to let that happen again. They come out in full force. Then up against a team that's a Stanley Cup contender. They're right there with them. I would argue even much past them. A much better game by the Sens than the Rangers. And then the Seattle Kraken, they don't allow anything to get in the way of getting a victory, and they play a good, clean game, and they're able to beat up on a team that they should beat up on. So now you take a look at that week, and you hope that you can reflect on some of that and bring it forward to this week. Because, Ross, I believe all these opponents are beatable teams if you're the Ottawa Senators. Like, Buffalo is a team that's kind of in the same range as Ottawa. I would say Ottawa's got a step ahead of them as of now. New York Islanders are a banged up team with a lot of big injuries. And then Boston Bruins, that's a team that hasn't really been able to find their new identity with all the changes in the offseason. So there's no reason why the Sens can't win all 3 of these games and at the very least be involved with them and put up good efforts.
For me, it's the 5-on-5 scoring. We knew the power play would regress a little bit. Now, did I think it would regress the way it has, where they haven't scored on the power play in the last 2 games? They went 0 for 3 against the Seattle Kraken. But hey, when your penalty kill's perfect at 4 for 4, it cancels out. They've got 9 even 5-on-5 goals during the last week. That's a huge improvement from weeks before, where they were relying on multiple power play goals. They did get 2 power play goals on Tuesday, but there were 6 more in the chamber that they were able to fire off. And then they score 5-on-6 to finish the job against Seattle. Tim Stutzle just using his speed there off a nice billiards play from Michael Amadio off the boards, and it was right on his tape. Great play there. 2 great empty net goals so far for Tim Stutzle, by the way. And in the next segment, I want to touch on how Tim Stutzle's start to the season is, I mean, so head and shoulders above his own age group. We'll get to that. But to me, it's that 5-on-5 scoring, playing well defensively. They only gave up 3 goals last week. 3 goals in 3 games. Like, what an improvement over, they allowed 3 goals in the final 4 minutes against the Vegas Golden Knights the Friday before. Like, being able to play sturdy defensively, I think, is a key, but getting that 5-on-5 scoring, man, if they can keep that up, this is going to be a dangerous team going forward.
Definitely. And we know they have the offensive abilities for it. And Ross, this is them doing it without a third line center and David Perron as well. They found ways to score without those guys in the lineup. Different guys have stepped up, like Adam Gaudette is a perfect example of a guy stepping up. And
6 goals.
He's looked so good, and he's scoring goals at important times too. Like that was a crucial goal up against Seattle because that gets things going. The home crowd gets into it. They put their hands together like you wanted, Ross, and it's a big deal. So having a guy that only plays like 9 minutes a night have 6 goals in 11 games, it's pretty impressive.
He leads the NHL in goals per 60 minutes right now.
I believe it.
Nobody has more goals per 60 minutes than Adam Gaudette. And I've got a wild Ottawa Senators stat to share for you. We'll get into Tim Stutzle and a prospect roundup where the London Knights have added a Sens prospect. That conversation is coming up. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. You guys know that Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for your shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You guys heard me right. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. Best part is, you don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Indeed. If you need to hire for your business, don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is driven by the search for better. And when it comes to hiring, Indeed is there for you. If you need to hire, you need Indeed because Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million monthly global visitors. That's according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. So ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And because you're a listener of Locked On Senators, you're going to get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Senators. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. All right, Millsy. So the Ottawa Senators starting their week off tomorrow night against the Buffalo Sabres. Only important thing going on in the United States tomorrow night is the Senators taking on the Sabres. That's a 7 o'clock start. Then the Sens will be back home for a 7 o'clock start against the Islanders on Thursday before heading to Beantown, Boston on Saturday night. On Friday, it'll be a late afternoon show. We're going to have Dean Brown, the voice of the Senators, on TSN 1200. He's going to join the show. Looking forward to chatting with him. We've got a game day preview tomorrow. A Citizen on Wednesday. It's going to be a great week here on Locked On Senators. It was a great week on the ice for the Sens. They go 2-1-0 and looked great in all 3 of those games. Let's start with a practice update because we mentioned Artem Zub and Shane Pinto were both on the ice for practice. Sounds like, per our guy Alex Adams of Sportsnet, that Shane Pinto just took part in the first area of practice, whereas Artem Zub took a bunch of reps with Jake Sanderson. So reading between the lines, it looks like maybe Zub a little bit closer than Shane Pinto. We can discuss that on tomorrow's show, though, because I think we know who should come out of the lineup on defense, but we'll see if the team feels the same way. I want to look at this wild stat. This is Trevor Shackles on Twitter has been tracking this, and the Sens have played 11 games. Do you know that the score has never been 1-1?
Wow, that's weird.
whoever scores the first goal has gotten the second goal in every one of the 11 games this season.
So just shut her down after the first goal. Just everybody go home, game over.
No, it's not game over, though. Think about LA. LA went up 2-0 on Ottawa, and then Ottawa wins the game. But
True.
It's just whoever scores the first goal has gotten the second one. I thought that was very peculiar.
Yeah, that's good to know. Keep an eye on that when you're on FanDuel.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's talk about Tim Stutzle. I mean, why wouldn't we want to do that? The guy is tied for 8th in the National Hockey League in points, and you look at just what he's been able to bring. Rather, he's tied for 12th now. There were some games yesterday that pushed him down, but after the game on Saturday, he was tied for 8th. And get this, he is the only player under 25 years old in the top 25. Like, I'm not talking about top 10, top 15. The top 25, it's just Tim Stutzle. So I went through and I was like, okay, I need to see like who's even close to him. And the answer is another member of that 2020 draft class. Anton Lundell is second, and he's 3 points behind him. Like, it's not even particularly close. And then you've got Connor McMichael. Matt Boldy has added a point last night. They beat the Leafs. Shout out Matt Boldy, overtime winner in that game against Toronto. And like, nobody else is even close. Tim Stutzle with the 3-point lead on everyone else under 25 years old. So not only offensively, but the way he's tracking pucks, the way he's physical and doing his thing, we're really seeing an evolution. I think fans can forget, ourselves included, because we've been, front and center with Tim Stutzle over the last number of years. This guy's 22 years old. He's not even close. So under 25, it's even got an exclamation mark because he's going to be on this list for another 3 years.
Yeah, seriously. I think maybe the rest of the league is going to have tinted visors moving forward here, Ross, because Tinted Timmy is a whole nother animal. And I agree with you. It's not just the fact that he's putting up points. It's the fact that the rest of his game is rounding out so nicely. He's playing more physical. It seems like he's the fastest guy on the ice at all times, Ross. He's so good when the other team has an empty net because he's such a speed threat. And you referenced it, but that was such a smart heads up play by Amadio, not just dumping it down. Quick heads up. Oh, Timmy's got a step on someone. I'll bank it off the boards, and I know he's going to beat him out, and I know he's going to have an opportunity to score there, and he does. So Tim Stutzle has been absolutely incredible as he leads the Ottawa Senators in points.
He's got at least a point in 9 out of the 11 games so far this season. Only Brady Tkachuk has one-upped him, as Brady's got a point in 10 of the 11 games. So the Senators are not only getting contributions from their top players, but their bottom players as well. And you say that in quotations. Obviously, they're all NHLers, but the Sens' fourth line has been lights out this season. Great to see, and it'll be interesting how things shuffle around when Shane Pinto gets back. My inkling is that he goes in for Zach Ostapchuk, who's easy to send down. He's been loaned on days off. By the way, Gaudette's hit 10 games now, so they can't paper him down anymore. And I think this guy deserves his full salary. Not that we're feeling bad. He's making $450 in the AHL if he does go there, but there's no way this guy clears waivers right now. No. I was looking at it. I was going to tweet this out. I was going to get so much flack for it. I was going to do goals by centermen playing in Canada. Only Leon Draisaitl has more than the 6 of Adam Gaudette. Now, Gaudette is tied with Tim Stutzle and Mark Scheifele. They all have 6 goals. I don't know if Scheifele had a goal yesterday. That would have one-upped him. But, hey, we were cheering for the Jets yesterday, too. They got a regulation win over the Tampa Bay Lightning. So that's big. So now Tampa's 7-5 on the year. If Ottawa gets a win against Buffalo, all of a sudden those two teams are tied again. So this is going to be fun to track. This is a big week for the Ottawa Senators. There's no way around that. And we're just hoping that Artem Zub and Shane Pinto can get back in the lineup. And we're thinking about about the Perron family, and hopefully everything on the home front can get sorted out in as positive a way as possible, and then get him back in the mix here as well. Exciting times to be an Ottawa Senators fan. And could it even be getting better? Do the Senators actually have a prospect pool now? We'll discuss that next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by a new sponsor. New sponsor alert, Ross. What's the new sponsor noise?
Woo-wee!
A couple woo-wees for our friends over at Built Rewards. Listen up, renters. Ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? Well, it's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. That's where Built Rewards comes in. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put points towards a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. You can use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them towards a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built points have been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Point Guys and by Bank Rate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/lockedon. That's joinbuilt.com, built, BILT.com/lockedon. Make sure to use our URL so they know that the Locked On Senators podcast sent you. Join built.com/lockedon to start earning points with your rent payments today.
Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. If you go over to FanDuel, you can make every moment more and get ready to tackle the action throughout the NFL season. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view play-by-play, and so much more on the same page that you place your bets. Just 2 games in the NHL tonight. LA visiting Nashville and New Jersey is in Edmonton. Right now, you can get the Oilers at home at +110. Look, I know they're without Connor McDavid, but I like the Oilers at plus money at home against the New Jersey Devils. So you can make every moment more over at FanDuel, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, Pilsy, here we are kicking off another week of Locked On Senators. Looking forward to a great one. Make sure to check out the GLEBE Central Pub Shuttle for the Thursday game against the Islanders. The vibes are free at the GCP. Pilsy, we're going to get to the prospect roundup in just a minute, but let me ask you this.
Okay.
How often do you look at the standings 10 games into the season?
Ross, my current NHL.com tab is on the standings right now. So quite often, and I know our buddy Liam's Martian hates standings watching early in the season, but it's important to know where you stack up, which teams you're battling up against. Ross, I know you're a big out-of-town scoreboard guy, so it's good for watching that as well. And I like seeing, look, who's playing good at home, who's playing good away, what are some streaks teams are on, like the Buffalo Sabres, Ross. 3-game losing streak. That's good to know. So yeah, I'm peeking at the standings pretty much every other day.
It's kind of interesting. I only look at the standings after the Sens win.
Yeah, weird how that happens, eh? When they lose, you're like, I don't need to know. I don't care. But when they win, you're like, oh, damn. And then, Ross, you start getting really excited and doing it by points percentage. And
that's where you get wild.
Yeah.
Let me sort it by points we don't have yet, but we're projected on pace to have this points percentage. So,
yeah.
All right, 6-5 on the year, and I think I wrote yesterday to Jack. He retweeted the Brady Tkachuk clips I was telling you about in segment 1, but it's just like to be this confident in a 6-5 team. I think fans around the league, you know, we talked to Jason Demers, we talked to Kyle Bukauskas. They're of the mind where it's like, hey, the Sens need to prove it to us first, and then we'll buy in. And it's like 6-5. If you just look at it on paper, it's not that impressive. But when you take into account they've had the 3rd hardest schedule to date, and then you take into account the home record, 5-1 on home ice for the Ottawa Senators, that's why, again, this week is so important. They're 1-4 on the road, and they've played in some tough barns. I will give them that. But at some point, you have to fix that. That's been an issue going back years at this point, that they can't win on the road.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, Ross, even the games they've lost, like Montreal was their worst loss. And that was a And yeah, I know it's tough. And that's a 4-1 loss that, wasn't good, and we were there. It was a tough performance, but it wasn't a derailing loss. And then the other losses up against the Devils, close enough game up
That was at
against
home. That's their loss at home.
Yeah, the Devils are a good team. That's their one loss at home. And then you look up against the Avalanche and Vegas, like there were opportunities to win those games, or at the very least get a loser point. So there's a lot of optimism. And then the New York Rangers game, the Sens were the better team there. So Sens fans, although it's 6-5 record, we know that this team has been closer and has had opportunities to have a better record than that. And I think that provides some comfort for the Sens, Ross, especially when you look at key guys being out of the lineup, that they're able to sustain this pace without those guys. Once you get those guys back in the lineup, especially Artem Zub, you're looking at a much improved team that can do more damage.
I've got a funny stat here just because you brought up the Kraken and the Habs as well. You know that the Kraken scored 8 goals against Montreal?
Yeah, wasn't that the same night the Sens won 8-1? The Habs lost 8-2?
So the Habs allowed 8 goals to the Seattle Kraken. The Kraken have 1 goal in 3 games since.
Oops.
1, and it was against the Leafs. They lost 4-1 to the Leafs, 3-0 to Ottawa, 2-0 to Boston yesterday. So thanks for coming out, Montreal Canadiens. It's too bad, though, that Ottawa blew that game, because 7-4 would be looking so good right now. But long season, we don't have to dwell on that. We can look forward. Buffalo, Islanders, and the Boston Bruins. We'll be with you every step of the way. We got the postcast for you tomorrow night, game day preview tomorrow morning, a whole week of action here at Locked On Sens. Now let's get to our prospect roundup. Pilsy, which Sens prospect should we start on?
Oh man, there's a lot going on with Sens prospects. Why don't we do the biggest kind of news in Sens prospect world first, or do you want to leave it for the end? I'm talking about a star becoming a knight.
I like that. Before we look at the star in the night, let's look at the Belleville Sens quickly, because I think, look, Sens fans saw Cole Reinhardt start to the season. There's a reason why he earned those 2 games with the big club, but dude, 10 points in 5 games so far this season in Belleville. Let's go. This would be such a phenomenal story for a 6th round pick in a draft where they had so many. You're just like, oh, that's a forgotten pick. He was an overager when they took him. If he can keep this up, I mean, he's going to get more looks in the show this year. This would be a great story.
Yeah, and I've mentioned a bunch of times, Ross, I think Cole Reinhardt is the perfect fringe player, because he's a top 6 AHLer that's going to produce points, leading the Belleville Senators in points. Thank you. And he's the perfect type of guy to play a 4th line role if he needs to step into a situation. So I think the Sens got to be really happy with how Cole Reinhardt is doing. And look, he deserves this. He's put in the work. He's been in the Ottawa Senators organization since 2020, playing in Belleville, only had the 1 chance before this year, and it didn't go his way. So I've got a lot of faith in this guy, and we're rooting for Rhino.
We certainly are. Belleville had a big win, I believe 6-1, if I'm not mistaken, on the weekend. And I talked to Pills, Martian. We actually played the video. Dude, your thoughts on Sabrango's 2-touch behind the back between the legs goal?
That's one of the greatest goals I've ever seen. Like, I know that sounds insane, but like, even to just do that move, just to get a puck on net, is a wild decision. But to do it and get a good shot and beat the goalie like that and have it on film, Donovan Sabrango, I mean, buddy, that is one hell of a goal. And it's not just that goal, Ross. He's got 5 points in 8 games. So he's really finding a home for himself in Belleville, which is great, because he was a guy that was bouncing up and down between the ECHL and AHL in his time in Detroit, even last season as well. So I think he's really found a mainstay on this Belleville blue line. And if he can keep scoring goals like that, hopefully that puts a few more butts in the seats at CAA Arena.
For sure. Angus Crookshank, 2 goals on Saturday. He's up to 4 goals, tied for the team lead now with Cole Reinhardt. All right, we buried the lead enough, but Blake Montgomery is following in his brother's footsteps, in a sense, joining the London Knights. Now, funny enough, his older brother, Bryce Montgomery, played for the London Knights and then left to go to the USHL. It's the flip for this one. You've got Blake Montgomery, who is committed to the University of Wisconsin, and we know there's a bit of gray area here. It seems like they're going to allow players now to go from the OHL to college. So we don't know his long-term outlook, whether he's still going to go that route or stay in London and go. But man, he was off to a great start with Lincoln. What are your thoughts on this move to one of the most prestigious organizations in the CHL?
Honestly, Ross, kind of shocked. Like, things were going very well for him in the USHL with the Lincoln Stars. 10 points in 10 games. He's projected to get 59 points in 59 games, point per game pace. You'll love to see that. And he decides to head to the OHL. But I mean, if you're going to go to the OHL, the London Knights is a great place to land. So that makes a lot of sense to me. But I feel like, Ross, usually it's disgruntled players that aren't producing or things aren't clicking for them that they decide to make this move. Now, maybe, I don't know. I haven't really been dialed in on the Lincoln Stars this year. Maybe this is a case where Blake feels like, hey, I'm putting up a point per game here. I should be getting more minutes, top power play, what have you. I don't know the situation there, but it's an interesting switch for sure.
I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. And I think there's also a bit of aura around the London Knights. I'm sure his older brother told him about it. And it just feels like, for me, this could be a bit of a fast tracker for Blake Montgomery. If he pops off in the OHL this year, maybe he reconsiders saying, hey, the college route, it could get me where I want to go eventually. But if I stay one more year in London, all of a sudden, man, I've got a pretty good look. Because remember, he is already 19 years old. He's going to be 20 in May. He was a 1-year overager when he was drafted. So, like, he could be fast tracking things right now. And maybe he's in Belleville next year or the year after. So I'm going to be watching this very closely. I'm curious to see how things move along with him. But yeah, point per game guys don't usually leave their teams. And we're going to be following Blake Montgomery closely here.
Just one more thing, Ross. I wonder if this has anything to do with the Ottawa Senators management as well, right? Like, we obviously know Steve Stais, Michael Andlauer, big OHL guys, and maybe they see the path of the OHL as a better opportunity for Blake, and, you know, maybe just being closer to the organization, to Ottawa, to Belleville, etc., is a better decision for them as a team with their prospects. I don't know. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of what Blake has to say about this move, and as we learn more information about it.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Blake, get him on the show here coming up. Timing didn't work out this summer, but he's got a great story as well, coming from Bermuda heritage. Yeah. And I'm excited to chat with Blake later on. We wish him well with the London Knights. Sticking in the OHL, Pilsy, Tomas Hamara raised some eyebrows going to the OHL after joining the Senators Belleville team in camp, and he's an overager. You expect him to do well, but I didn't have a Tomas Hamara fight on my bingo card this year. He had a goal, an assist, a fight, and 3 shots in a 5-2 loss against the Oshawa Generals on Sunday. And he's up to 5 points in 5 games. So a nice start to his time back in Brantford for Hamara.
I did not expect a Gordie Howe hat trick for Tomas Hamara. Like, that is wild. He's not the style of player that typically would have that happen. But hey, it's one of those things, Ross, and we just finished singing Donovan Sabrango's praises, and like, that decor on Belleville is going to be tough to crack, especially for a smaller, younger defenseman. So I think this was not really a punishment demotion for Hamara. It's more like, okay, we got to find a way to get you in games, and the best we can do in Belleville is plug and play you in a couple games when we got back-to-backs.
And they've already got Jorian Donovan for that, who's only played in 4 games so far this season.
And he arguably has a step up on Hamara as far as kind of the tier and being more pro-ready, in my opinion, and probably the Sens' opinion as well. That's why this move was made. But you got to play games when you're this age. So if he's going to go down to the OHL, Ross, might as well be the Brantford Bulldogs, Michael Andlauer's team, and you might as well light it up at a point per game pace. So I hope he's doing well and hope he can continue this pace and maybe gets an opportunity later in the season when the Bulldog season is over, because he could go back to the AHL after that, right?
After the season's over, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe that's when they see, okay, you put the work in, you've improved your game, you've improved your strength. I'm sure that's one thing they're really getting on him. If you're going to play in the AHL, you're going to have to be a stronger defenseman. So it's just things like that hopefully they can dangle the carrot, and once he has a good full OHL season, then he can be back in Belleville.
And finally in the OHL, our guy, big man, Gabriel Eliasson. +8 through 14 games with the Barrie Colts. He's got 2 goals, no assists, and 30 penalty minutes so far. But hey, he's getting that transition and look, he's leading or near the lead of the team in plus minus. So they don't track too many stats to get into the ins and outs, but he's being physical, and I'm excited to see as this monster grows into his body.
Yeah, I got to get out to a Barrie Colts game, Ross. I got to get boots on the ground.
When London or Brantford's in town?
Yeah, or the Kitchener Sens, who also the Ottawa Senators
got his first goal.
Yep, and he got a point as well in their last game, I believe. So the Kitchener Sens are looking good too, even though I guess it's Lucas Elness is there as well. Yep. So yeah, I'm definitely going to try to get some OHL boots on the ground. And Ross, unless there's more, well, I guess we could talk about Carter Yakimchuk. You want to talk about this?
Is it good or bad that 9 of his 10 points are on the power play?
I'm going to say bad, Ross, because we know this guy can produce on the power play. I mean, he was producing in NHL preseason games with the man advantage, even without the man advantage. So we know he can produce, but he's a -6. The Calgary Hitmen, obviously not an elite WHL or CHL team. So I think we're kind of hoping a trade ends up happening that moves him to a different team. But Ross, as long as he's playing a good, consistent game that will allow him to be on Team Canada for the World Juniors in Ottawa, I'm not going to get too upset or too wrapped up in how his season's going, because that I would say is the most important part of this season. I mean, you'd like to see him in some playoff games in the WHL, maybe a Mem Cup. Obviously, that would be sweet. But I think the way he performs on Team Canada and the World Juniors in Ottawa especially will be the most critical part of his development this year.
Yeah, he had a 6-game point streak early in his time. He's played 9 games in the Calgary Hitmen organization now, but his last 3 games, 0 points, and last game he was held off the shot sheet for the first time as well. So hopefully just an anomaly here, but obviously he did his work in preseason to put himself on the Sens radar, and we're just going to be hoping that there's some 5-on-5 even strength production here coming up for Yakimchuk in Calgary. Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Well, I got 2 just to keep on the prospect roundup. I know we don't go to the East Coast Hockey League very often, Ross, but Jabril Toure, did you see his first pro fight? Sens Prospect posted the video. Oh my God, he destroyed this kid. So keep your head up when you're playing up against the Orlando Solar Bears, and Jabril Toure is out there. So I just wanted to get that shout out in. Final thoughts for me. If you're watching on YouTube, you've probably noticed I'm looking a little different. Ross, this is the most I've had to look at myself with a fully clean shaven face. I find myself walking around the house and seeing a mirror and being like, whoa, what the heck? My iPhone has difficulties doing the Face ID. I'm not even kidding. It doesn't get it every time these days. But it feels weird, but it's all for a good cause. I tweeted out my Movember page where you can donate. I've got a $500 goal. We've already had some donations come in. The common one, Ross, this won't surprise you, $11. So if you feel compelled to donate towards a great cause, I'm put my cause as supporting men's health, men's mental health, most importantly. If you feel like you want to donate, check out my Twitter. I'll keep on reposting that page so people can find it. And I'm going to be doing a daily photo update of how my face is going. And I think I'm just going to go nice muzzy, and keep the rest clean. So that's my goals here. So right now, I feel like I look like I'm 16 years old. I got the baby face, but we're going to continue on here for Movember. And
I, of course, am going to be doing the activities portion. I think I've gone 0.8 kilometers out of my 60-kilometer goal. So I got some work to do here. I'll be running around.
I want to see, Ross, on November 29th, you just do a full 50K, because you're like, oh God, I got to catch up here. So you just have a full day of getting those steps in. So I appreciate you also jumping in on the cause.
The double marathon look for me. As we sign off here, Travis Green saying that Artem Zub will play sooner rather than later, and it was always the intention for Shane Pinto to just get a little bit of a skate in and not stay out. So it's not like he tweaked something and it's awful. No, that was the plan today for Shane Pinto. The plan for tomorrow on the show is a game day preview. Senators in Buffalo at 7 p.m. Eastern. For today, we say goodbye. That's Brandon Piller. If you don't recognize him, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.